Today we are reviewing Sevilla versus FC Barcelona at Estadio Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan. Sevilla managed only 1 point from their previous 3 games, while FC Barcelona were looking for their third win. Of course, Julian Lopetegui is not a coach that you can underestimate at any point in time. And so, as Barcelona fans, we do know that you can't be too confident in a game like this. And, of course, Sevilla are looking to assert themselves in the league, regain the form that we know they have the potential to show. So we were wondering, was it going to be Maravilla Sevilla or boastful Blaugrana? Well, it was a wonderful game for the Blaugrana outfit. Really exciting to see the team coming together. Exceptional performances from the likes of Jules Koundé, who we know recently transferred from Sevilla, 55 million euros, to FC Barcelona. Before the start of the match, he greeted all of his former teammates, and you could sense that the atmosphere and the camaraderie between the two teams was fierce yet friendly. He received a lot of applause from the crowd as well before the game began. And what a game he had. 2 assists, a clean sheet versus Sevilla, and almost himself getting on the score sheet. A really, really amazing performance. In all, 64 touches, 38 out of 49 passes completed, 3 lob balls. Again, 2 really big chances created, 1 dribble, a clearance, 6 ball recoveries, and overall 3 out of 6 duels won. Never been dribbled past in that entire game. Amazing performance. I mean, when you talk about a player of this caliber, he can be a center half, he can be a center back, he can be a right back. And of course, because at this moment in time, we don't have a natural right back that we can play in that role, Javi opting to use Jules Koundé at the fullback position. And, what a game he had. 2 assists. That he was so dominant, so commanding. And, he really kind of just owned the right flank or the right side of the pitch, linking up well with the likes of Dembele, Pedri, Sergio Busquets. And again, that chance on goal that he had to get on the score sheet um, was a lob ball played over the top, a floater, if you may, by Pedri, just going wide. It was such a good chance. And, watching the match, you were so excited for him because, after, just assisting a goal, you really wanted to see him get, on the score sheet himself. A really, really solid performance from him, and even though he had a lot of opportunity to go forward. He had the freedom to run forward and he added numbers and attack. He never once shied of getting back to assist the defenders, assist the keeper in not only providing, coverage, but ensuring that Sevilla weren't able to get on the score sheet. They frustrated us a lot in the first, I would say, opening 15 to 20 minutes. They actually looked like the team that was more likely to score in the opening minutes. Somehow Barca's back three and back four, might I say, were able to repel those attacks and able to keep them out. Ter Stegen doing a really good job. A few goal line clearances as well, but overall we were able to just keep them at bay, luckily. Isco, as we know, transferred from Real Madrid, and uh, I wouldn't say he's necessarily of the star quality that we've seen from him in the past. So maybe not necessarily a player that is worrisome, but still a player that can cause some sort of damage, along with Ivan Rakitic, who again shook hands with Sergio Busquets at the beginning of the game because, of course, they were former teammates. Rakitic transferred from Sevilla to Barcelona, won Champions League with Barcelona, won several trophies, and then transferred back to Sevilla. Also brought his team, Croatia, Hrvatska, as they call it, to the World Cup final versus France in 2018. So they have quality, right? and they were really, really threatening to score in the first opening 20 minutes, but eventually we kind of reasserted control of the game after that first goal. So it was really good to get that goal in, the opening 20 minutes of the game, the first half early out, so that we could actually just kind of change the intensity and the tempo and reassert control over the game. And that we did. Aside from Jules Koundé, again, I mean, 55 million euros. Uh, man, with the transfer fees that you see, flying around, especially on deadline day or in England, in many parts of the world, Germany, Italy. It's a wonder how we were able to get Jules Koundé for only 55 million euros. At this point, that's a steal, especially with inflation and this kind of market. That is a steal, I will say. So aside from Jules Koundé, really, really wonderful performance from Eric Garcia. Eric Garcia also got his first Barça goal. Amazing. He was quoted as saying, he's being teased a little bit in the dressing room for, not scoring. And we know of his quality going forward. We know that he is a natural ball handler as a defender. It was really amazing to see him scoring. The joy and the happiness, everyone on the pitch was really excited for Eric Garcia to score. And what a goal it was. And Eric Garcia, again, another one, just like Jules Koundé, finding himself in really advantageous positions to score going forward. Still, though, ensuring that he can get back and add those numbers of defense and provide that stability, that solidarity that his goalkeeper and the rest of his fellow defenders needs. The likes of Araujo and Balde, for example, or Sergio Roberto. A good game from Roberto as well. Got forward a lot, attacked a lot. Also played a pass that would have really seen Lewandowski scoring, but it was not to be because the goalkeeper saved it. Um, Everyone is really stepping up to the plate, and this was a very important game, a stadium that is difficult to get a result in at times, especially when the crowd is behind Sevilla. So it was really good to see everyone stepping up and showing out. Rafinha, the first goal scorer of the night, and he was, of course, ecstatic to get his goal and get off the mark finally in La Liga. He's been putting in some really good performances over the last couple of weeks, had a really good preseason. And, it's really good when you get that first goal, because then, it's like, finally. And so, your confidence is not necessarily at an all-time high, but it's better than it was before you scored, probably having many shots on target. And, seeing other people around you, forwards, other wingers scoring, you really want to be on the mark as well. He was really, really pivotal and important in Leeds United being able to survive after being relegation threatened. And, he was really, really outstanding. We had to make that signing. And, after, again, his preseason performances, Javi has rewarded him with another start because he truly has earned it, in my opinion. So it was really, really good to see Rafinha on the score sheet. Of course, we dominated possession as usual. And, Javi voiced his opinions about how we performed throughout the course of the 90 minutes. We received 4 yellow cards. And honestly, it's not necessarily something you want to see, because we want to maintain, that discipline. It's a long season, a congested season at that. Araujo now has 3 yellow cards. And remember, with yellow card accumulation in La Liga, you would miss certain games if you accumulate 5 consecutive yellow cards, right? It's an automatic suspension for at least 1 game. So you really want to kind of avoid getting cards. Dembele also picked up a yellow card earlier in the game, in the first half. And so he now has 2 cards. We really want to try to keep those yellow cards down to a minimum. It was really good to see that our man of the match for the night, Gavi, was not booked, right? He was all over the pitch. He made several important and timely challenges. And it's really good to see that he's made his way through several games consecutively without getting a yellow card. That was really good to see. Overall, we really want to have, fairly, efficiently refereed games. for the most part, of course, we always know that playing against Sevilla, it's going to be a challenging game, a physical game at that. And it did get very physical at times, right? Between Gavi and Rakitic, between Sergio Busquets and several others. So it was really good to see that we could keep them down to a minimum of four. In my opinion, a very high number, and we really want to try to avoid getting cards in our game against Cardiff. So again, a really good performance from Gavi. And it now begs the question, after seeing how important he is to the coach and how important his performances are in terms of his timely challenges, his off the ball movement, his ability to recover possession, that we have a player giving us those attributes and those qualities in La Liga. It's not going to be a walkover season by any means. And again, teams are pressing us really high, and teams are not sitting back and soaking pressure anymore, especially not like we saw in the Rayo Vallecano match, the opening fixture, right? Teams are more likely to press and more likely to challenge in midfield. So what was really important was that most of our really threatening passes were passes over the top. I think that most of the players on the field kind of realized and used their brains a lot to realize that it's really important to try to beat the defense in the air, right? We do put crosses, hard and low on the ground into the box. Dembele, we saw doing that a lot. Rafinha doing that a lot, and sometimes cutting in. But it's very important to understand your position and know how to unlock their defense and try to, go for goal. So with all of the ball recovery and tackling and all that was going on, that Gavi added, it was really good to see that the likes of Sergio Roberto and Jules Koundé could still play a ball or two over the top. The same for Alejandro Balde, so that we could find a way to unlock Sevilla's defense. Once again, we got that first goal, then it was almost automatic that we started to, control the game, dominate possession, and then get more goals. Really, really outstanding performance from Gavi. He was the best player on the night by a mile, by far. So again, we may need to start discussing the fact that Gavi should probably be a starter alongside Pedri and Sergio Busquets in La Liga, and maybe Frankie de Jong playing in the Champions League. Frankie de Jong has had many a successful Champions League game for us, Barcelona, and then of course at his former club, Ajax. So it would be really understandable if Javi chose that approach. But again, you probably don't want a player to be leaning towards one competition only. So again, it's going to be interesting to see where that balance comes in, especially because you want to maintain a healthy squad for the entire season, and you also want to balance the minutes that everyone gets so that they're staying healthy, but they're also staying match fit. So it'll be really interesting to see that. Pedri, though, Pedri was substituted, and it's maybe not as concerning, but Pedri seemed to be a little winded, especially after maybe 55, 60 minutes thereabout. Of course, we know that Pedri is of an extremely high level, but it just seems like he's not able to play a full 90 anymore. He played 100 games last season, right? And so you kind of have to wonder if playing back-to-back Olympics, played in the Euros, and then played almost every single game because of the fact that there was just nobody else offering what he did. Um, you kind of have to wonder, is he still feeling the repercussions or the after effects of that season? And do we need to start thinking about bringing Pedri off the bench and starting Frankie de Jong or starting Kessie, or do we need to start thinking about substituting Pedri earlier? We took him off after 63 minutes. Do we need to start substituting Pedri after 55 minutes or 60 minutes, especially in a game where we have control? Maybe not against an opponent like Sevilla, but especially in a game where we have control. We've scored a lot of goals, and we're looking to a midweek fixture in the Champions League, a Copa del Rey when that begins, or any other kind of competition. Because you really want to ensure that you have a player like Pedri to call on throughout the season. And I'd hate to see Pedri being sidelined, because of discomfort or, God forbid, an injury. So I'm wondering, in the same measure that we have Ansu Fati on minutes restriction, do we need to start thinking about minutes restriction for Pedri? Maybe not to the extent where we're probably playing him for 25 to 45 minutes, but probably where we're starting to think, okay, maybe we should restrict Pedri to 60 minutes or 55 minutes, because you really want to ensure that your gem, right, or golden boy is available. Again, really wonderful to see the link up between Pedri and Lewandowski. And again, Lewandowski showing that leadership, whereas guiding Gavi, Eric Garcia, and the likes of Ansu Fati, as we know, but also Pedri, playing with his back to the goal, linking up with a lot of, the interiors, the midfielders, and the forwards, but also kind of giving tips, constructive and positive advice on the field and before and after games, right? Kind of motivating the team, being a leader in the dressing room, kind of uplifting everyone, and also showing his intent by always being like a goal shark, always being positive in his plays, always leading from the front. It's really wonderful to see Lewandowski adding so much more than just his goals to this team. And his goal was the first goal that he scored in 6 games against Sevilla. That's between playing for Borussia Dortmund or Bayern München. You have to feel, again, some sort of relief and happiness when you see things like that, because I'm sure players of his caliber, little statistics like that, they're aware of it. It's probably not the driving factor behind why they play the way they play or the things that they achieve in a specific game, but it's definitely in the back of their mind. And so kind of when you get over that hurdle or that milestone, it's always like a sigh of relief. Rafinha again getting his first goal, and man, you have to wonder if again getting a player of that caliber was not a steal, because if you look at other players going for around 85 million, 90 million, 100 million, you're like, wow, Rafinha is already showing himself to bring that Brazilian flair and that samba, enjoying, good health and good football. It's really, really good to see his performance. So there were some times when Dembele himself got in front of goal and chance where he opted to go all the way. So I believe it was 2 versus 1. Dembele was in a 1v1 situation versus the keeper after beating the Sevilla defender. And he also had the option to pass to Lewandowski, who would have had an open goal. He opted to shoot and shot wide. And I'm thinking, Lewandowski is the striker. Pass it to him. He's open. Pass it to him. He's paid to score goals, right? And he's not someone who has to be in a sure goal to score. It was good to have a 2-goal cushion and do something like that. But in a game where you probably are playing an opponent of, the unpredictable nature as Sevilla, who can probably pull a goal back after the half, you kind of don't want to give any chance away. You don't want to leave those chances unanswered. You don't want to leave those chances begging. So in a game of this nature and this importance, your chances will come, right? Pass it to Lewandowski, because he will definitely finish it off. All right. And I was really disappointed to see that, but I'm glad that we were able to maintain that 2-goal cushion going into the break and then win the game. Overall, the chance creation was definitely consistent and remarkable to see between Dembele and Rafinha. Aside from them switching wings, aside from Pedri, Roberto, Jules Koundé creating chances, as soon as we scored the first goal and then the second goal, but as soon as we scored the first goal, we kind of turned up the intensity on them. Sevilla were really on the back foot and they were struggling, much like we were when they had the momentum. But as soon as the first goal was scored, it shifted, and then we started having a flurry of chances that kind of put us in the driver's seat. And it kind of resembled a game that probably would have ended 4-0 or 5-0 because of how many chances we were getting. 447 passes and 83% of those accurate. 18 shots by Barcelona. If you're shooting 18 times and you're getting almost half of those on target, 7, you're bound to score a few goals and you're bound to win the game. I really love to see FC Barcelona having chances on goal upwards of 15 to 20 per game. To set the standard even higher, I'd say anywhere between 20 to 25 per game. If we can have 25 shots per game and have at least 10 of those on target, it's almost certain that at least 5 of those are going to be goals. Something that's not talked about, and the unsung hero, if you may, of the match, Sergio Busquets, 4 tackles, 9 ball recoveries, and the most duels won between both teams, 10 out of 14, had not been dribbled past in the entire game and had not committed a foul. That is, again, very important in a team, very important on a night like this, difficult stadium to win in or to get a positive result in. And again, another player adding his individual brilliance on the night, contributing to the overall quality, performance, and consistent high level that's required by the entire team, which is what also assisted and helped us to finish this game with a positive result. So we saw Eric Garcia being substituted after the 55th minute. And for many people, that was worrisome because he's had a series of exceptional performances over the last couple weeks, the last few games. And so it was a bit of a scare, kind of wondering if he had an early end to his game because of some discomfort. But he was quoted after the game as saying that he's fine, and his abductor is fine. So that's also something that we may need to keep our eye on, along with, minutes restriction for Dembele, Ansu Fati, Pedri, and Eric Garcia. We do know him to be a player that can get injured and be out for, a couple weeks. He would definitely want to continue these performances so that he can stake a claim for a starting spot or role in the World Cup for España. So being on the field, being active, being involved is important. So we really want to ensure that he's consistent with his performances and that, again, he is not aggravating or playing while nursing any injuries. We definitely want to see his quality continue, especially with the likes of Andreas Christensen, Araujo, Jules Koundé, Sergio Roberto, Alejandro Balde, and company. So for the first goal, before we scored, there was an opportunity. It seemed to be Sergio Busquets, who recovered possession inside our area, played a through pass to Dembele, who carried it from the half line around the 18-yard area in the attacking and final third, played a little dink to Lewandowski. Lewandowski tried to chip. That was saved. And then Rafinha latched on to the rebound with a header. And that's how we got the first goal. Lewandowski timed his run to perfection for the second. Ball played through to Jules Koundé, who appeared to have intent to progress down the flanks, but instead deciding to go inside, seeing that Lewandowski was open, playing a ball over the top. Lewandowski took the ball down beautifully off his chest and slotted home. There was no way the goalkeeper was saving that. Man, Lewandowski just has a suitcase full of world-class goals. I mean, how good is this guy? Wow. I mean, well, then again, if you've broken a 50-year-old Bundesliga record by Gerd Muller, then you can definitely understand just the caliber that this man has. And we are so blessed to have a player like Lewandowski in the team, especially because, again, he's not just bringing goals, right? He's bringing an elite mentality, leadership qualities. He's definitely someone who wants to uplift the next generation, and he's definitely someone who has technical insight that's invaluable to the success of this team. He fit in perfectly. For the third goal, we saw where there was a short corner taken. Rafinha floated it over into the box. Koundé saw what was happening, and instead of shooting, decided to head it across the goal. The keeper was obviously beaten, and that's where Eric Garcia did what he was supposed to do. Man, it was a well-worked goal, and there's just so much understanding at every aspect, every third of the pitch, from every role, for everyone in this team, and between everyone in this team. There is just so much understanding. It's really beautiful to see. There is not any one player who doesn't know what he's supposed to do, where he's supposed to be, and who doesn't have the ability to make those link-up plays, find players that are in open spaces, or themselves make those movements off the ball to get in those spaces to be able to finish those chances. Man, it was a really comprehensive and mature performance from FC Barcelona, and this is what we've been longing to see. especially as an opponent especially against an opponent as Sevilla, even though again they're not necessarily on the best run of form right now, but it's definitely what you want to see. The substitutions were really good from Javi, ensuring that again players off the bench like Sergio Roberto, Ferran Torres, Frankie, and Jordi Alba could get minutes. Ansu Fati came on in the 75th minute, and he didn't necessarily look like himself, but again I'm not too concerned or worried because we do know of the mentality and the level of class and the type of player that he is to know that he definitely has years worth of high performing games in him. And just like Pedri, 19 years old, you really want to preserve them and their quality for the future. So I think even though he got 25 minutes and he probably didn't perform as he would have liked or hoped, and probably as other dedicated fans of him as a player and Barcelona fans would have wanted to see, it's overall still just one of those days, and as a player, you're gonna have those days. You don't necessarily show the sparks that you normally do on your best day, but it's still not necessarily a terrible performance, and it's definitely something that you can learn from and build on, show up for the next game or the next couple games. Overall, not too concerned about him. Ferran Torres, though, is one that I'm a little bit concerned about. He's been showing some, in Javi's estimation, supreme levels in training to warrant starting in La Liga, but not showing that in the real game situations on the pitch, on the field when it matters. I would say that he's had at least a full year to understand the style of play, calendar year that is, to understand the style of play, to know how best to use his attributes and what he has to bring to the table to fit into the philosophy and for us to actually be able to get the best out of him. But somehow we're just not seeing that. And so for me, I think he now should be a player that comes off the bench, scores off the bench, and then shows the coach that, okay, I really want this. I'm working for this, especially in a game where we're not necessarily dominating as much. There's the floodgates haven't opened, so to speak. It would be really good for him to come onto the field off the bench and still find a netter. And that's really what we want to see. Haven't given up on him. Still think there's quality there, but he just needs to start showing it. Otherwise, he's going to find himself on the bench much more often than he would like. Alba getting some minutes, good just to help him maintain match fitness and be ready for the Champions League. For example, we have Victoria Pilsen um, on Wednesday. Really want to ensure that he's at that level so that if he starts or if he's able to feature, that he still shows a consistent level. And speaking of Jordi Alba, we presented Marcos Alonso and Hector Bellerin. They've also been registered for the UEFA Champions League season. So we might see, and this is also why it's important for Alba, we might see them featuring more and getting more minutes. We do now know that Alejandro Balde is Javi's preferred option at left back. And as it stands, Conde would be the option at right back. So for Alonso and Bellerin, they would probably start to get minutes in the Champions League and in La Liga progressively. It's very important for Alba to recognize this and understand that Marcos Alonso still has quality and still is a force to be reckoned with, right? So with that being said, it's going to be very competitive, especially because Alonso is also his teammate for Spain. So that competition also exists for that position there, right? But it would be very good to see the quality that Alonso and Bellerin can bring, not only to the Champions League, but also to La Liga and any other competition that we play. It's really important to have rotating options of quality. And what Javi ensured he did was have at least 2 to 3 options for each position so that at any given time we can still maintain the high level that is expected and demanded of us in any competition that we're playing. And that way, whatever we're trying to achieve with whichever opponent that we're facing, we can still get it done on any given day. So with that being said, it looks as if Piqué again may not see much minutes in La Liga, may not even see much minutes as a Barcelona player this season. And it definitely, if last year wasn't the year, it definitely appears to be his twilight year in La Liga. So definitely something for him to think about and try to figure out a transition, because the younger players are definitely showing the quality that's required. And also, he's definitely past his prime. Looking ahead now, we have Cardiff FC next in La Liga. But before that, we have Victoria Pilsen, or opening Champions League fixture. And so far, looking at the entire group, our group is definitely the group of death. Inter have been pretty inconsistent in their Serie A fixtures, if that's anything to go by. They lost to Lazio. They also lost the Milan derby to AC Milan 3-1. Bayern lost to Borussia Mönchengladbach, and they drew with Union Berlin. If their domestic leagues are anything to go by, it would appear that these teams are not necessarily on the best run of form right now. So once we continue to get the positive results, first with this Victoria Pilsen game, next with the Cadiz game, it would definitely give us the confidence we need going into any fixture in the Champions League, to know that we can get a positive result on any given night, whether home or away. What we need to do is definitely be mindful of what these teams have, the threats that they pose on any given night, but also continue to strengthen ourselves and stay focused. Ensure that we keep our eyes on the task at hand at any given night and on the prize itself, the eventual prize. I definitely believe that we can finish, if not on top of this group, second. And so it's very important with this Victoria Pilsen game that we get a positive result. In terms of the prediction, I would say probably 4-love to Barcelona. We're going to be playing at home. We're going to be giving the fans the thrill, the excitement, the exhilaration on a European night in Catalonia. And so we definitely want to open our campaign with as many goals as possible, but also with a clean sheet, right? To ensure that, we correct any defensive mistakes or any errors before those games. And especially on a night like this, with an opponent who is considered the weakest in the group, that we definitely get a commanding victory next Wednesday night. With that being said, I believe the lineup may incorporate some of the substitutes, since they did not necessarily start as many La Liga games, the likes of Frankie de Jong. So at the back, we'd probably start with Jordi Alba. We'd start with Christensen, Araujo, possibly Sergio Roberto or Jules Koundé at right back. I'd probably go with Sergio Roberto at right back as a starter. Frankie de Jong starts this match alongside Pedri and Busquets. I would want to see Ansu Fati start, but most likely he's going to go with Ferran Torres because, again, Ferran has been showing consistent levels in training and needs a confidence booster. Lewandowski, obviously, up front, and Dembele, who is a preferred option on the right wing. All right, that does it. Thank you so much for joining and listening. Visca el Barça, Visca Catalunya.